Hello there, my name is Ashlyn Cook, and this is a meeting between myself as an advocate for nurses, IVF access and protection, and California Assemblywoman Lori Davies of the 74th District. Hello, Assemblywoman Davies. Thank you so much for taking valuable time out of your day to meet with me. My name is Ashlyn Cook, and I'm a registered nurse in the state of California, as well as a Master's of Science in Nursing student at Azusa Pacific University. I'm meeting with you today as a nurse advocate representing nurses to discuss recent legislation and propose solutions that may be impactful for healthcare in the state of California. The topic of in vitro fertilization access and fetal moral value is important to myself and many others, not just as a nurse, but as a woman and as a pregnant mother. And I'm here to discuss recent legislation and ask for a few things to be done moving forward in order to improve access and offer bioethical considerations. The work that I do is in hematology oncology and inpatient bone marrow transplant. Access to IVF services and embryo storage is vitally important to many of the patients that I work with as they look to pursue fertility options after their treatment. I also believe that similarly to your beliefs, empowering women is a necessary and powerful thing, and that IVF service access is one way in which we can continue to empower women. In an article published this year by the Los Angeles Times, California resident Katie McKnight is interviewed on her experience and difficulties with IVF services after having breast cancer. Access to IVF is challenging due to costs associated with embryo transfer and storage, which may limit her options. She also fears that what happened in Alabama may also happen in California in blocking embryo research and destruction that may shut down clinics. According to the California Board of Registered Nurses, there are over 538,000 nurses in California alone, meaning the services we offer and the protection of our jobs is very important. In addition, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services lists California as one of the top 10 states in the nation to utilize IVF, making its access, protection, and medical ethics vitally important not just to patients, but also to practitioners. In a recent legislation proposed by yourself and sponsored by two other Assembly members titled Assembly Congruent Resolution 154, three key points are emphasized. The first is that Alabama's Supreme Court ruling on the personhood of embryos be overturned. The second is that legislation be created in California to protect IVF services. And the third is that national legislation is created to establish access to IVF. I am here to affirm, challenge, and advocate for this bill in a few different ways. I would first like to challenge the pursuit of asking Alabama Supreme Court to overturn their ruling. In support of the ethical principles of justice and autonomy, the ruling provides moral value and personhood to embryos that does not have to be a threat to IVF services, and it may, in fact, provide greater protection. This ruling may serve to further advocate for the second and third points in your legislation, ACR 154, to protect services not only in California, but also nationally by recognizing the value of embryos. I propose that greater emphasis in research, education, and funding be allocated to the access of embryo adoption, making embryos more accessible to patients. In addressing the second and third points of your recent bill to protect access to IVF service in California and nationally, I also propose that legislation be created to increase funding that will be allocated to the accessibility of IVF services, and that major insurance companies are promoted to provide increased coverage for patients who wish to pursue IVF, such as with the case of cancer survivor Katie McKnight. Lastly, I ask to address the concern of conducting embryo research and limited access of IVF clinics by asking for further transparency and regulations to be placed on embryo research in order to provide clear and consistent national guidelines for research that protect both the embryo and the practitioner. This will allow for IVF services to remain operational and accessible. Assemblywoman Davies, just as the issue is of your concern, it is of mine as well. Many nurses wish to be brought into this conversation to promote IVF accessibility and ethical treatment of embryos. I believe these recommendations coincide with your values in promoting female empowerment. Your platform on social media presence is a wonderful way in which to bring awareness to this issue, which I ask that you will consider posting about in order to raise awareness to continue to gather support and understanding of various views. Thank you so much for taking time to meet with me, and I look forward to your engagement with this issue moving forward.